Ode to Duty by William Wordsworth. Stern daughter of the voice of God, O Duty, if that name thou love, who art a light to guide, a rod to check the erring, and reprove thou, who art victory and law, when empty terrors overawe, from vain temptations dost set free, and calmest the weary strife of frail humanity. There are who ask not if thine eye be on them, who, in love and truth, where no misgiving is, rely upon the genial sense of youth, glad hearts without reproach or blot, who do thy work and know it not. Oh, if through confidence misplaced they fail, thy saving arms, dread power, around them cast. Serene will be our days and bright, and happy will our nature be, when love is an unerring light, and joy its own security. And they a blissful course may hold, even now, who, not unwisely bold, live in the spirit of this creed, yet seek thy firm support according to their need. I, loving freedom and untried, no sport of every random gust, yet being to myself a guide, too blindly have reposed my trust, and oft when in my heart was heard thy timely mandate, I deferred the task in smoother walks to stray. But thee I now would serve more strictly, if I may. Through no disturbance of my soul, or strong compunction in me wrought, I supplicate for thy control, but in the quietness of thought. Me this uncharted freedom tires, I feel the weight of chance desires. My hopes no more must change their name. I long for a repose that ever is the same. Stern lawgiver, yet thou dost wear the Godhead's most benignant grace. Nor know we anything so fair as is the smile upon thy face. Flowers laugh before thee on their beds, and fragrance in thy footing treads. Thou dost preserve the stars from wrong, and the most ancient heavens through thee are fresh and strong. To humbler functions, awful power, I call thee. I myself commend unto thy guidance from this hour. O let my weakness have an end. Give unto me, made lowly wise, the spirit of self-sacrifice. The confidence of reason give, and in the light of truth, thy bondman let me live.
Jabberwocky by Lewis Carroll. 'Twas brillig and the slithy toves did gyre and gimble in the wabe, all mimsy were the borogoves, and the mome-raths outgrabe. Beware the Jabberwock, my son, the jaws that bite, the claws that catch. Beware the Jubjub bird, and shun the frumious Bandersnatch. He took his vorpal sword in hand, long time the manxome foe he sought. So rested he by the tum-tum tree, and stood a while in thought. And, as in uffish thought he stood, the Jabberwock with eyes of flame came whiffling through the tulgey wood, and burbled as it came. 1, 2, 1, 2, and through the vorpal blade went snicker-snack. He left it dead, and with its head he went galumphing back. And hast thou slain the Jabberwock? Come to my arms, my beamish boy. O frabjous day, Callooh, Calais, he chortled in his joy. 'Twas brillig and the slithy toves did gyre and gimble in the wabe. All mimsy were the borogoves, and the mome-raths outgrabe.
west wind, thou breath of autumn's being, thou, from those unseen presents the leaves dead are driven, like ghosts from an enchanter fleeing.
Yellow and black and pale and hectic red, pestilence-stricken multitudes, O thou who chariotest to their dark wintry bed.
The winged seeds, where they lie cold and low, each like a corpse within its grave, until thine azure sister of the spring shall blow
Her clarion o'er the dreaming earth, and fill driving sweet buds like flocks to feed in air, with living hues and odors plain and hill.
Wild spirit, which art moving everywhere, destroyer and preserver, hear, O hear.
Thou on whose stream, mid the steep sky's commotion, loose clouds like earth's decaying leaves are shed, shook from the tangled boughs of heaven and ocean.
Angels of rain and lightning, there are spread on the blue surface of thine eyrie surge, like the bright hair uplifted from the head
Of some fierce Maenad, even from the dim verge of the horizon to the zenith's height, the locks of the approaching storm, thou dirge
of the dying year, to which this closing night will be the dome of a vast sepulchre, vaulted with all thy congregated might.
of vapors, from whose solid atmosphere black rain and fire and hail will burst, O hear.
Thou who didst waken from his summer dreams, the blue Mediterranean where he lay, lulled by the coil of his crystalline streams,
beside a pumice isle in Baiai's bay, and saw in sleep old palaces and towers quivering within the waves' intenser day,
all overgrown with azure moss and flowers, so sweet the sense faints picturing them, thou for whose path the Atlantic's level powers
cleave themselves into chasms, while far below the sea blooms and the oozy woods which wear the sapless foliage of the ocean know
thy voice, and suddenly grow gray with fear, and tremble and despoil themselves. O hear!
If I were a dead leaf thou mightest bear, if I were a swift cloud to fly with thee, a wave to pant beneath thy power and share
the impulse of thy strength, only less free than thou, O uncontrollable, if even I were as in my boyhood and could be
the comrade of thy wanderings over heaven, as then when to outstrip thy skiey speed scarce seemed a vision, I would ne'er have striven.
As thus with thee in prayer in my sore need, O lift me as a wave, a leaf, a cloud. I fall upon the thorns of life, I bleed.
A heavy weight of hours has chained and bowed one too like thee, timeless and swift and proud.
Make me thy lyre, even as the forest is. What if my leaves are falling like its own? The tumult of the mighty harmonies
will take from both a deep autumnal tone, sweet though in sadness. Be thou, spirit fierce, my spirit, be thou me, impetuous one.
Drive my dead thoughts over the universe, like withered leaves to quicken a new birth, and by the incantation of this verse,
scatter as from an unextinguished hearth ashes and sparks, my words among mankind, be through my lips to unawakened earth
the trumpet of a prophecy. O wind, if winter comes, can spring be far behind?
The Highwayman by Alfred Noyes. The wind was a torrent of darkness among the gusty trees. The moon was a ghostly galleon tossed upon the cloudy seas. The road was a ribbon of moonlight over the purple moor, and the highwayman came riding, riding, riding. The highwayman came riding up to the olden door. He had a French cocked hat on his forehead, a bunch of lace at his chin, a coat of claret velvet, and a breeches of brown doe skin. They fitted with never a wrinkle, his boots were up to the thigh, and he rode with a jewelled twinkle, his pistol butts a twinkle, his rapier hilt a twinkle, under the jewelled sky. Over the cobbles he clattered and clashed in the darkened yard. He tapped with his whip on the shutters, but all was locked and barred. He whistled a tune to the window, and who should be waiting there but the landlord's black-eyed daughter, Bess, the landlord's daughter, plaiting a dark red love knot into her long black hair. And dark in the dark old inn-yard a stable wicket creaked, where Tim the ostler listened. His face was white and peaked, his eyes were hollows of madness, his hair was like mouldy hay. But he loved the landlord's daughter, the landlord's red-lipped daughter. Dumb as a dog he listened, and he heard the robber say, "One kiss, my bonny sweetheart. I'm after a prize tonight, but I shall be back with the yellow gold before the moonlight. Yet, if they press me sharply and harry me through the day, then look for me by the moonlight. Watch for me by the moonlight. I'll come to thee by the moonlight, though hell should bar the way." He rose upright in the stirrups. He scarce could reach her hand, but she loosened her hair in the casement. His face burned like a brand as the black cascade of perfume came tumbling over his breast, and he kissed its waves in the moonlight. Oh, sweet black waves in the moonlight. Then he tugged at his rein in the moonlight and galloped away to the west. He did not come in the dawning. He did not come at noon. And out of the tawny sunset before the rise of the moon, where the road was a gypsy's ribbon, looping the purple moor, a red-coat troop came marching, marching, marching. King George's men came marching up to the old inn door. They said no word to the landlord, they drank his ale instead, but they gagged his daughter and bound her to the foot of her narrow bed. Two of them knelt at her casement with muskets at their side. There was death at every window, and hell at one dark window, for Bess could see through her casement the road that he would ride. They had tied her up to attention, with many a snigger and jest. They had bound a musket beside her, with a muzzle beneath her breast. "Now keep good watch," and they kissed her. She heard the doomed man say, "Look for me by the moonlight, watch for me by the moonlight. I'll come to thee by the moonlight, through hell should bar the way." She twisted her hands behind her, but all the knots held good. She writhed her hands till her fingers were wet with sweat or blood. They stretched and strained in the darkness, and the hours crawled by like years, till now on the stroke of midnight, cold on the stroke of midnight, one tip of her finger touched it. The trigger at least was hers. The tip of one finger touched it. She strove no more for the rest. Up she stood up to attention with the muzzle beneath her breast. She would not risk her hearing, she would not strive again, for the road laid bare in the moonlight, blank and bare in the moonlight, and the blood of her veins in the moonlight throbbed to her love's refrain. Shalott, 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 Shalott. Had they heard it? The horse hoofs ringing clear. Shalott, 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 Shalott. In the distance, were they deaf that they did not hear? Down the ribbon of moonlight, over the brow of the hill, the highwayman came riding, riding, riding. The redcoats looked to their primins. She stood up, straight and still. Shalott in the frosty silence, Shalott in the echoing night. Clearing, nearer he came and nearer. Her face was like a light. Her eyes grew wide for a moment. She drew one last deep breath. Then her finger moved in the moonlight. Her musket shattered the moonlight, shattered her breast in the moonlight, and warned him with her death. He turned. He spurred to the west. He did not know who stood, bowed with her head o'er the musket, drenched with her own blood. Not till the dawn he heard it, and his face grew grey to hear how Bess, the landlord's daughter, the landlord's black-eyed daughter, had watched for her love in the moonlight, and died in the darkness there. Back he spurred like a madman, shrieking a curse to the sky, with the white road smoking behind him and his rapier brandished high. Blood-red were his spurs in the golden moon. Wine-red was his velvet coat, when they shot him down on the highway. Down like a dog on the highway, and he lay in his blood on the highway, with a bunch of lace at his throat.
The Sunlight on the Garden by MacNeice. The sunlight on the garden hardens and grows cold. We cannot cage the minute within its nets of gold. When all is told, we cannot beg for pardon. Our freedom as freelances advances towards its end. The earth compels, upon its sonnets and birds descend, and soon, my friend, we shall have no time for dances. The sky was good for flying, defying the church bells and every evil iron, siren, and what it tells. The earth compels. We are dying, Egypt, dying, and not expecting pardon, hardened in heart anew, but glad to have sat under thunder and rain with you, and grateful too for sunlight on the garden.
Swing by Bernstorf. Listen, quantify a sunset, spreadsheet hydrangea petals, 5-year plan eucalyptus leaves and watermelon seeds, validate the dew, so many prayers on a single blade of grass, which is here today and gone tomorrow. Divide the salt water by the fresh, and what do you get? I have no idea. But the Louisiana brine daily teaches me to lose myself, fresh and salt, indecipherable in the graceful violence of borders dissolving, the joy of being consumed. I don't know if I care who I am in the metaphor anymore. The Mississippi River riding the central U.S. like a 90-foot slide at the water park, or the gentle Gulf tickling a little child's toes for the first time. I'm lost in the song. Go ahead, market me, count my meter, evaluate my rhythm, underline every simile, sell my skin, airbrush my face, a Big Mac before a photo shoot, auction my teeth, donate my kidneys for the tax write-off, and footnote Eliot so it all makes sense. I can't fund a 401k with the joy I get from eating kiwis, or save my neighbors' souls watching reruns of The Mentalist. I've never seen a couple survive bankruptcy solely on disciplined hand-holding and kissing at red lights, but there's still something to be said for those things too. And what if all I really needed was a few less plans, and all everyone really needed was a few less policy sessions and a few more songs sung by a few more people serving food? And what if we all took online classes for plastic surgery and secretly replaced everyone's middle finger with a chocolate cake? Crazy, I know, but no more so than holding a knife to the throat of a man holding a knife to your throat and calling it peace. Pop the trunk. Blast me with long-winded explanations about life experience. Smother me with the wet blankets of security mildewing in the back seat. I've been reading the Word, and it's leading me to increasingly ridiculous conclusions, like not being afraid anymore. And did I tell you about the rain? Well, the Word showed me all creation singing, and I started listening, and it turns out that that's true, and that the rain's been writing poems upon the pavement for forever, or at least since we started paving roads. The rain smashes itself against the earth in full contact epics and sonnets and villanelles and free verse and forms I don't even know the names for. And I've started reading them, and now me and the rain and the grass and the Bradford pear are all singing hymns and writing poems together like it's Sunday. And it's been Sunday for 3 days now. What if our logic was really just our gallbladder? It's helps sometimes, but really it's just not the most important piece of the puzzle, and most of us really don't know what it's for or how to use it. And most people end up getting that junk cut out after a while anyway, because sometimes it gets infected and kills people. I have weekly tea parties with Flight of the Conchords' grandma, and all of my emotions and the intangibles that live inside my head. And it turns out, when I finally acted on my suspicions and strip-searched the whole room, courage really did look like a lion, and fear really had been wearing logic's face for longer than I can ascertain. You see, it turns out logic is dead next to Dr. Dre in Eminem's basement, and fear has been wearing his face. He took lessons from Zartan and sits in the corner, sipping Earl Grey and looking over my shoulder, whispering like a snake and leaving the back door open for doubt to come in and raid the pantry. The truth is that joy can't be quantified, and it's what we really were looking for the whole time. And love is reality and gravity and the fabric of the universe. Once it wells up inside of you, we just can't help doing anything else but amputating in favor of those chocolate cakes and praying for the heart transplants in the book of Ezekiel, and then carving tiny giraffes from all those removed stone hearts and selling them as cute coffee table decorations, and using the proceeds to feed the homeless of our communities. What if I just let myself believe what I really do deep down believe, because other people's doubts do not belong to me? And because that father was right, I've got a lot of sons with demons, and my sons need setting free. So Lord, help my unbelief.
The Tyger by William Blake. Tyger, Tyger, burning bright in the forests of the night, what immortal hand or eye could frame thy fearful symmetry? In what distant deeps or skies burnt the fire of thine eyes? On what wings dare he aspire? What the hand dare seize the fire? And what shoulder and what art could twist the sinews of thy heart? And when thy heart began to beat, what dread hand and what dread feet? What the hammer? What the chain? In what furnace was thy brain? What the anvil? What dread grasp dare its deadly terrors clasp? When the stars threw down their spears and watered heaven with their tears, did he smile his work to see? Did he who made the lamb make thee? Tyger, Tyger, burning bright in the forests of the night, what immortal hand or eye dare frame thy fearful symmetry?
Diary of a Church Mouse by Sir John Betjeman. Here among long discarded cassocks, damp stools and half-split open hassocks, here where the vicar never looks, I nibble through old service books. Lean and alone I spend my days behind this Church of England bays. I share my dark forgotten room with 2 oil lamps and a half broom. The cleaner never bothers me, so here I eat my frugal tea. My bread is sawdust mixed with straw, my jam is Polish for the floor. Christmas and Easter may be feasts, for congregations and for priests, and so may Whitsun. All the same, they do not fill my meager frame. For me the only feast at all is autumn's harvest festival, when I can satisfy my want with ears of corn around the font. I climb the eagle's brazen head to borrow through a loaf of bread. I scramble up the pulpit stair and gnaw on morrow's hanging there. It is enjoyable to taste these items ere they go to waste, but how annoying when one finds that other mice with pagan minds come into church my food to share, who have no proper business there. 2 field mice who have no desire to be baptized invade the choir. A large and most unfriendly rat comes in to see what we are at. He says he thinks there is no God, and yet he comes. It's rather odd. This year he stole a sheaf of wheat. It screened our special preacher's seat. And prosperous mice from fields away come in to hear our organ play, and under the cover of its notes ate through the altar's sheaf of oats. A low church mouse who thinks that I am too papiscal and high, yet somehow doesn't think it wrong to munch through harvest evensong, while I, who starve the whole year through, must share my food with rodents who, except at this time of the year, not once inside the church appear. Within the human world I know such goings-on could not be so, for human beings only do what their religion tells them to. They read the Bible every day, and always, night and morning, pray. And just like me, the good church mouse, worship each week in God's own house. But all the same, it's strange to me how very full the church can be, with people I don't see at all, except at Harvest Festival.
I Remember, by Thomas Hood. I remember, the house where I was born, the little window where the sun came peeping in at morn. He never came a wink too soon, nor brought too long a day, but now I often wish the night had borne my breath away. I remember, the roses red and white, the violets, the lily cups, those flowers made of light, the lilacs where the robin built, and where my brother set the laburnum on his birthday. The tree is living yet. I remember, where I was used to swing, and thought the air must rush afresh to swallows on the wing. My spirit flew in feathers then, that is so heavy now, and summer pools could hardly cool the fever on my brow. I remember, the fir trees dark and high. I used to think their slender tops were close against the sky. It was a childish ignorance, but now 'tis little joy to know I'm farther from heaven than when I was a boy.
He Wishes for the Cloths of Heaven by William Butler Yeats. I had the heavens embroidered cloths, enwrought with golden and silver light, the blue and the dim and the dark cloths of night and light and the half-light. I would spread the cloths under your feet, but I, being poor, have only my dreams. I have spread my dreams under your feet. Tread softly, because you tread on my dreams.
The Glory of the Garden by Rudyard Kipling. Our England is a garden that is full of stately views, of borders, beds and shrubberies, and lawns and avenues, with statues on the terraces and peacocks strutting by. But the glory of the garden lies in more than meets the eye. For where the thick laurels grow along the thin red wall, you will find the tool and potting sheds which are the heart of all. The cold frames and the hot houses, the dung pits and the tanks, the rollers, carts and drain pipes, with the burrows and the planks. And there you'll see the gardeners, the men and prentice boys, told off to do as they are bid, and to do it without noise. For except when seeds are planted, and we shout to scare the birds, the glory of the garden, it abideth not by words. And some can pot begonias, and some can bud a rose, and some are hardly fit to trust with anything that grows. But they can roll and trim the lawns, and sift the sand and loam, for the glory of the garden occupieth all who come. Our England is a garden, and such gardens are not made by singing, "Oh, how beautiful," and sitting in the shade, while better men than we go out and start their working lives by grubbing weeds from gravel paths with broken dinner knives. There's not a pair of legs so thin, there's not a head so thick, there's not a hand so weak and white, nor yet a heart so sick, but it can find some needful job that's crying to be done, for the glory of the garden glorifieth everyone. Then seek your job with thankfulness, and work till further orders, if it's only netting strawberries or killing slugs on borders. And when your back stops aching and your hands begin to harden, you will find yourselves a partner in the glory of the garden. Oh, Adam was a gardener, and God who made him sees that half a proper gardener's work is done upon his knees. So when your work is finished, and you wash your hands and pray, for the glory of the garden, that it may not pass away. For the glory of the garden, that it may not pass away.
The Lady of Shalott by Alfred Lord Tennyson. On either side the river lie long fields of barley and of rye, that clothe the world and meet the sky, and through the field the road runs by to many towered Camelot. The yellow-leaved water lily, the green-sheathed daffodilly, tremble in the water chilly round about Shalott. Willows whiten, aspens shiver, the sunbeam showers break and quiver in the stream that runneth ever by the island in the river, flowing down to Camelot. 4 grey walls and 4 grey towers overlook a space of flowers, and the silent isle embowers the Lady of Shalott. Underneath the bearded barley, the reaper, reaping late and early, hears her ever chanting cheerly, like an angel singing clearly, o'er the stream of Camelot. Piling the sheaves in furrows airy, beneath the moon, the reaper weary, listening whispers, "'Tis the fairy Lady of Shalott." The little isle is all enrailed with a rose fence, and overtrailed with roses. By the marge unhailed, the shallop flitteth silken sailed, skimming down to Camelot. A pearl garland winds her head, she leaneth on a velvet bed, full royally apparelled, the Lady of Shalott. No time hath she to sport and play, a charmed web she weaves alway. A curse is on her if she stay her weaving, either night or day, to look down to Camelot. She knows not what the curse may be, therefore she weaveth steadily. Therefore no other care hath she, the Lady of Shalott. She lives with little joy or fear. Over the water running near, the sheep bell tinkles in her ear. Before her hangs a mirror clear, reflecting towered Camelot. And as the mazy web she whirls, she sees the surly village churls, and the red cloaks of market girls pass onward from Shalott. Sometimes a troop of damsels glad, an abbot on an ambling pad, sometimes a curly shepherd lad, or long-haired page in crimson clad, goes by to towered Camelot. And sometimes through the mirror blue the knights come riding 2 and 2. She hath no loyal knight and true, the Lady of Shalott. But in her web she still delights to weave the mirror's magic sights. For often through the silent nights a funeral with plumes and lights and music came from Camelot. Or when the moon was overhead, came 2 young lovers lately wed. "I am half sick of shadows," said the Lady of Shalott. A bow shot from her bower eaves he rode between the barley sheaves. The sun came dazzling through the leaves, and flamed upon the brazen greaves of bold Sir Lancelot. A red-crossed knight forever kneeled to a lady in his shield, that sparkled on the yellow field beside remote Shalott. The gemmy bridle glittered free, like to some branch of stars we see, hung in the golden galaxy. The bridle bells rang merrily as he rode down from Camelot, and from his blazoned baldric slung a mighty silver bugle hung, and as he rode his armor rung beside remote Shalott. All in the blue unclouded weather, thick jeweled shone the saddle leather. The helmet and the helmet feather burned like one burning flame together, as he rode down from Camelot. As often through the purple night, below the starry clusters bright, some bearded meteor trailing light moves over green Shalott. His broad clear brow in sunlight glowed, on burnished hooves his war horse trode, from underneath his helmet flowed his coal-black curls as on he rode down from Camelot. From the bank and from the river he flashed into the crystal mirror. Tira, lira, sang Sir Lancelot. She left the web, she left the loom, she made 3 paces through the room. She saw the water flower bloom, she saw the helmet and the plume. She looked down to Camelot. Out flew the web and floated wide, the mirror cracked from side to side. The curse is come upon me, cried the Lady of Shalott. In the stormy east wind straining, the pale yellow woods were waning, the broad stream in his banks complaining, heavily the low sky raining over towered Camelot. Outside the isle a shallow boat beneath a willow lay afloat. Below the carven stern she wrote, the Lady of Shalott. A cloud-white crown of pearl she dight, all raimented in snowy white, that loosely flew, her zone in sight, clasped with one blinding diamond bright, her wide eyes fixed on Camelot. Though the squally east wind keenly blew, with folded arms serenely by the water stood the queenly Lady of Shalott, with a steady, stony glance, like some bold seer in a trance, beholding all his own mischance, mute with a glassy countenance, she looked down to Camelot. It was the closing of the day. She loosed the chain, and down she lay. The broad stream bore her far away, the Lady of Shalott. As when to sailors while they roam by creeks and outfalls far from home, rising and dropping with the foam, from dying swans wild warblings come, blown shoreward, so to Camelot. Still, as the boat head wound along the willowy hills and fields among, they heard her chanting her death song, the Lady of Shalott. A long-drawn carol, mournful, holy, she chanted loudly, chanted lowly, till her eyes were darkened wholly, and her smooth face sharpened slowly, turned to towered Camelot. For ere she reached upon the tide, the first house by the waterside, singing in her song she died, the Lady of Shalott. Under tower and balcony, by garden wall and gallery, a pale, pale corpse she floated by, dead cold between the houses high, dead into towered Camelot. Knight and burgher, lord and dame, to the planked wharfage came. Below the stern they read her name, the Lady of Shalott. They crossed themselves, their stars they blessed, knight, minstrel, abbot, squire, and guest. There lay a parchment on her breast, that puzzled more than all the rest, the well-fed wits at Camelot. The web was woven curiously, the charm is broken utterly. Draw near and fear not, this is I, the Lady of Shalott.
The Lion and Albert by Marriott, Edgar. There's a famous seaside place called Blackpool that's noted for fresh air and fun, and Mr. and Mrs. Ramsbottom went there with young Albert, their son. A grand little lad was young Albert, all dressed in his best, quite as swell, with a stick without an horse and handle, the finest with Wordsworth could sell. They didn't think much to the ocean, the waves that was fiddlin' and small. There was no wrecks and nobody drowned. Fact, nothing to laugh at all. So seeking for further amusement, they paid and went into the zoo, where they'd lions and tigers and camels and old ale and sandwiches too. There was one great big lion called Wallace. His nose was all covered with scars. He lay in a simulant posture with the side of his face on the bars. Now Albert had heard about lions, how they were ferocious and wild. To see Wallace lying so peaceful, well, it didn't seem right to the child. So straight away the brave little feller, not showing a morsel of fear, took his stick with a horsen head and handle and pushed it in Wallace's ear. You could see that the lion didn't like it. For giving a kind of a roll, he pulled Albert inside the cage with him and swallowed the little lad whole. Then Pa, who had seen the occurrence and didn't know what to do next, said, "Mother, yon lion's et Albert." And Mother said, "Well, I am vexed." Then Mr. and Mrs. Ramsbottom, quite rightly, when all's said and done, complained to the animal keeper that the lion had eaten their son. The keeper was quite nice about it. He said, "What a nasty mishap. Are you sure that it's your boy he's eaten?" Pa said, "Am I sure? There's his cap." The manager had to be sent for. He came and he said, "What's to do?" Pa said, "Yon lion's et Albert, and in his Sunday clothes too." Then Mother said, "Right's right, young feller. I think it's a shame and a sin for a lion to go and eat Albert after we'd paid to come in." The manager wanted no trouble. He took out his purse right away, saying how much to settle the matter, and Pa said, "What do you usually pay?" But Mother had turned a bit awkward when she thought where her Albert had gone. She said, "No, someone's got to be summoned." So that was decided upon. Then off they went to the police station in front of the magistrate chap. They told him what happened to Albert and proved it by showing his cap. The magistrate gave his opinion that no one was really to blame, and he said that he hoped the Ramsbottoms would have further sons to their name. At that, Mother got proper blazing, and "Thank you, sir, kindly," said she. "What waste all our lives raising children to feed ruddy lions? Not me."
Remember by Christina Rossetti. Remember me when I am gone away. gone far away into the silent land, when you can no more hold me by the hand, nor I half turn to go, yet turning stay. Remember me when no more day by day you tell me of our future that you planned. Only remember me. You understand it will be late to counsel then or pray. Yet if you should forget me for a while, and afterwards remember, do not grieve. For if the darkness and corruption leave a vestige of the thoughts that once I had, better by far you should forget and smile, than that you should remember and be sad.
Thank you for listening to Rain in the Garden at the Albert Inn. If there are poems you would like us to read here, please join our Discord channel and let us know. May joy find you throughout this week. Goodbye.